Welcome to Regina's Cantina. This one is for Carol Sorensen. Carol Sorensen asked about how is the best way to connect with our guides. So I wanted to begin by sharing a couple of basic things about guides in the guiding realm themselves, and also about ourselves and the way in which we can begin perceiving. And then I will tell you my own personal story about how I connected with guides, even though it might sound a little bit kooky. It's how it worked for me. First of all, we have to understand that guides come in many forms, and they come in many different levels of consciousness, awareness, refinement. You can have guides that were, if any of you have listened to my human origins story, guides that came from the very beginning, the ones who may have come over to this side, maybe even incarnated one time and said, that's enough for me, but these people need help, and have been with us from the very beginning. There are people who have guides that were here from their very first incarnation and the merging between the portal people and the human animal at that time, and they've been here all along. They're interesting because they're highly creative, and they fully understand kind of the drama and trauma of the story of what it is to be human. So there's a great amount of empathy, and they know through many, many, many incarnations how to best work with any given individual. There are also other types of interdimensional beings that come from other realms that are here and interfacing with us. And these can be from very, very refined realms, some of which you've probably already read about. There can also be extraterrestrials who have stayed on in a capacity to be able to telepathically communicate with us. This is not an uncommon thing where someone will see a guide that has the appearance somewhat of an ET. Others have spirit guides that take the shape of animals that seem to be telepathically communicating with them. The thing is, if you've been on Earth for any length of time, you've been through many incarnations, and there have probably been a vast assortment of beings that have been working with you from the other side. They're to help keep you safe, to help guide you, to help keep you moving forward and progressing and refining yourself. So I don't think it's as important to know what the source of your guide is. It's more important to just understand that you do have them. And we can have guides all the way down to our favorite alcoholic Uncle Bob, who's passed over and loves us to pieces, but maybe didn't have a lot of wisdom or knowledge, but he wants to help. So you have some of that too. And you got to be a little careful about that when someone very close to you with highly addictive patterns has passed over and loves you to pieces, because sometimes they would love to continue having that experience as your drinking buddy or smoking buddy. And just be aware that it's harmless, but it's on the other side. And they just want to be able to enjoy some of the earthly pleasures that they're no longer able to enjoy. So there are those kinds of guides too. I think when it comes to learning to connect with them, the first thing is to make your whole being open enough to say, I'm not sure how we begin, but I want to begin having direct communication with you. If you're not already having direct communication, and that can be subtle to profound to very direct. So set the intention clearly, make your decision that you are going to avail yourself to them to come and be with you in a way that they feel is appropriate to reach into you and get your attention. It may not be what you expect or what you want. So some of you may be kinesthetic. Some of you may be clairvoyant or clairaudient, clairsentient. You just have suddenly, it's in your head. You have a sense of knowing, and you may not know where it came from. That's a little more tricky because you think, where did that thought come from? It's not as easy to identify, for example, as a guide putting a picture in your head or playing a little movie for you or whispering into your ear. You just know you know, and that's absolutely as legitimate as the rest. So don't put any judgment or limits on what kind of communication is taking place between you and your guides. It can be anything, literally. So I'll begin telling you my own story about how it started. Obviously, there were probably many, many attempts by my guides to get through to me, and that I wasn't recognizing as guidance. And this would happen throughout my life by a feeling of kind of desire, or just kind of a quick, I think I want to do that. And so I'm considered by my guides to be very easy to guide because I'm open-minded, I'm spontaneous, I can even be impulsive. And so they'll just whisper something at the right time and I'll follow it usually, as long as it's harming nobody, no harm to anyone else, no harm to me. And it's something that I have a desire to do for some reason. They can work pretty efficiently with me. But the first day that I recognized communication was starting to take place happened when I was taking a run around the park. And this particular park had a large section and then it had a finger off of it. If you wanted to continue and have a longer run, you would add the little finger on to the circuit. In this particular, I normally did the whole run, the whole circuit with the little finger included for a little extra mileage. But on this particular day, I had a feeling I was trying to shortcut it and turn right early before the finger part of the park. And my body couldn't turn right. It was as though someone literally kept pushing me to go forward. I couldn't make my body turn right. I thought, okay, now I was used to strangeness a little bit at that point, so it wasn't alarming or anything. I just thought, all right. So I went ahead and ran around the finger and went home. So I allowed myself to become a little more oxygenated, a little more relaxed. My parasympathetic nervous system was kicked in a little bit more by going the extra distance. So this is how I pieced it together later. I sat down and something kind of nudged me to say, hey, get your Ouija board out and start playing with it. I had a French girl, a little au pair for my son when he was little, who was also a student in California. And she and I had somewhere along the way picked up a Ouija board and we used to play with it. And it always not only amazed us, it wasn't frightening at all, but it was a little surprising that once we put our fingers on the planquette opposite each other, the planquette would just take off. We could hardly hang on. It was going so fast all around to the edge of the board. So I was already comfortable with a Ouija board, and I don't even know why. I got the message to just go play with the Ouija board. So I played with the Ouija board, and the Ouija board said, basically, go get a paper and a pencil. Okay, I don't know what this is about, but I'll do that. So I got a large piece of drawing paper and a pencil, and I thought, whatever's going on, I'm not going to make anything happen. I'm just going to set myself aside. So I literally went like this and then let my hand over here on a piece of paper do whatever it was doing. And so what it did was it started practicing forms. So, for example, an L or a T or an E, just various forms and shapes. And what happened was my hand just kept going over and over in the same area. Then it would seem to move on and go again. And I didn't look at it. But when I did look in it while this was taking place, but when I ultimately did take a look at it, I was absolutely shocked at the perfection of how each one of these lines or loops absolutely overlaid each other. It was perfect, flawless. I couldn't have done that with my eyes trained on it. I thought, okay, that's interesting. And then finally, my hand started writing a little message to me. And it said, go to your typewriter. So I went to my typewriter. And I thought, same thing. I'm not going to make anything happen. I'm not going to load the deck. I decided to just relax, close my eyes, and put my hands in my lap. And I just sat there at the typewriter and thought, if something's going to happen, you have to make it happen, because I'm not going to make it happen. All of a sudden, my hands just floated up and my fingers gently set themselves on the keys. And I kept my eyes closed. I'd already put a piece of paper in there. And then typing began, just typing. And it said, hello, Regina. And it misspelled my name, which was to be a characteristic from that point forward whenever I did what is called automatic writing. Every single day, with my eyes closed, my name was misspelled into Regina. So fine. Okay, Reigna. So I thought, well, whatever this quirk is, doesn't really matter. And it started writing to me about my connection with my guides, and that I had this one particular guide who had been there with me for a long time and was available for me to begin communicating with. And that using automatic typing through my typewriter, and of course today be your keyboard, was a perfectly acceptable way to do this. So I thought, okay. So I started asking about various subjects, and I would get these wonderful little discourses going. And again, same thing every time. I'd let my hands float up, close my eyes, and just let it go and read it at the end. And I would ask about any number of subjects, and I was always kind of surprised that it was knowledge that my mind wasn't aware of at the time. Now, could it be buried somewhere in my subconscious from lifetimes ago? Yes, absolutely. I'm sure the knowledge is there, but I wasn't aware of it on a conscious level. So I found it interesting that I would be learning new things after each of these particular typing sessions. Then I thought, well, why do I need a typewriter? Can't I just, that's too cumbersome. You can't just do it anywhere. I want to try it on my own without any apparatus. So what I ultimately ended up doing is just sitting and waiting, and said, okay, whoever it is, I'd like you to speak to me. And I started feeling this very subtle kind of tickling on the top of the head, although my hairs in the top of my head were being very lightly touched. It was just like a tingling. And then after the tingling, there would be this sensation where almost like molasses, this slow energy would move down my forehead, and almost feel like it was pushing my forehead and my eyebrows down. And once it reached that place, I was in a very relaxed state. And then I would wait. And that's what happened the first time, happened again the second time, happened again the third time. So I was not startled, and I was seeing a pattern, and I knew this is how we're going to be communicating now. So the guides would simply either show me something or they would tell me something. And the process of transmission could be slow as molasses on some days, or I'd barely sit down, and there we were. So that became the beginning of a lifelong experience of chatting with my guides. Now, this is a completely different kind of meditation than what you would call TM. So these kinds of meditations were very specifically designed to just sit down, let the screen go blank, let the funny feeling happen down my forehead, and wait. Sometimes I would bring a question with me, and I would hope that that would be answered. Sometimes I would just do that to see if there was something they wanted to share with me. So either way, I was open to whatever kind of messages came, and then oftentimes I would go ahead and write it down afterwards. So this has been very efficient for me. As time went on, the feeling changed a little bit as the particular guide speaking to me would change, but I'd always find some kind of identifying hallmark. And another thing that happened, and I've heard this with some of the people I've interviewed as well, when they would be speaking to me and be giving me direct information, it would feel as though that information was simply trickling down or falling down the right side of my head or brain. All of it would just, like a waterfall of information coming down one side. And so that also became another identifying factor of being given information from these guides. With each one of you, it's going to be completely different. So the beginning point is simply to say, I am ready to begin having direct experience with any guide among you that is the most appropriate one to be able to work with me at this stage of my development. Because over time, as you become more facile at it, you'll have other guides starting to come in. You may not stay with the same guide the whole time. I switched guides 3 different times to the ones I have now, where I just sit down and ask a question, and they will generally give me the information. There's some questions I'm not supposed to be asking, and the screen stays blank, and I get it. After a few minutes, it's like, all right, I'm not supposed to know that right now. So honor the process and understand that guides can almost be like genies. Mine are like that. They're far more clever than I am. I'll ask the question of something I'm concerned about, hoping to, be validated for having such a clever solution, only to find out I can't even begin to conceive of the things they can conceive of by ways of offering solutions, for example. So to be open-minded and humble enough to know they have a vast, vast view that you don't necessarily right here from this little conscious mind through these five senses have access to. So I have great respect for their abilities to not only guide me, but their abilities to put things right in front of me, to literally manifest what's needed in bizarre ways and in ways that go far beyond normal timelines and such. Just know that these beings are magnificently capable, and they're absolutely there for you to call upon. So when you're ready, begin your own relationship with your own guide. Call it in. And one final thing, my main beings that I have associated with over the last 35 years, giving me information in various ways, have said, when you come to your guides, don't ever come like a beggar. You come with a command in your mind, in your heart. And the reason for this is that the human species has been, as I've said in other podcasts, has been made to feel very small, insignificant, less than. This is what we're known for. Our species is known to have an inferiority complex that has, in part been perpetuated and now just habitual by nature as a species. And so they said, when you're ready to ask for that something be done, know that your guides will do this for you if it's within their own ethics. You have to honor your ethics and their ethics. They say, hey, you may want that, but that's not something that we can, in our own good conscience, work with you on. So just respect that. They're not going to show up if that's the case. So you be careful about what you ask for. But once you have made a good, clean, clear request for assistance with something or clarity on something, they said, don't come with your begging bowl. Command. Simply say, this is what I wish to see happen in my life now. Please make this happen in the most efficient and recognizable way for me so I can engage with it and be effective in my own life. Well, whatever words you want to bring up, but it's commanding. It's let's do this now. It's not, gee, please. I mean, I kind of say, I don't know if you have time. No, none of that. You go ahead and clearly and simply command to be worked with in a way that is going to be beneficial. You're the one with boots on the ground on earth. You're the one with amnesia. You're the one slogging through the difficult stuff. It's a little easier game for them, even if they feel a bit ignored and unappreciated at times. It's still a much harder slog to try to make things happen here on planet Earth, and they're at your service and ready to help you at any request. So just start asking. Thank you.